Those Days with the Monsters, Part 58. The distant pronouncement echoed against the white walls. There was silence. Finally, Kirill could hear Gux clear his throat.
I need a list of intact military, ships, planets.
Refuel and repair yards.
Cinna's voice cut in.
And refuel and repair yards.
Yes, sir. The transmitted voice cut out, and Kirill could hear some extremely faint whirring. Maybe it was easier to hear because everything else had gone silent. Finally, Gux spoke.
Is that all that's left?
Yes, sir, as far as we know.
The silence grew and stretched out like a monstrous growth creeping up the walls. It was broken by a strange, rattling hiss that grew into a shriek. Kirill's frills flared red and a very dark blue. The sound was terrifying, but he couldn't help the strange, aching feeling in his chest that it caused. Mourning. Someone was mourning. For what? What was that scream?
Yuxin.
Don't bother him. His blood bonds were on Zrin.
The strange wail continued for several minutes, before suddenly Gux spoke.
So be it then.
His voice suddenly echoed over some sort of speaker.
Everyone is under strict orders. Return. Return to your blood bonds and your families. Comfort them, and be comforted in them. There is very little time. Make it worth remembering.
Sir,
Cinna's voice objected before the speaker cut out. Whatever he was saying, it was drowned by the rising sound of more shrieks. The room had broken out in a horrible scream. Kirill saw two Tiziks supporting each other as they passed by his door, barely looking at him. One was making that awful screaming sound. The other was horribly silent. Slowly the sounds faded, the Tiziks who made them scattering into the distance. Aching, heavy silence took over. Finally, Kirill could hear Gux's voice.
Order to all troops. We are opening the list of survivors and refugees. Find your families and your blood bonds, and go to them. The war is over. Defend them with your lives.
Yes, sir. There was a quick electric crackle, and then a faint humming sound, as if the transmission was still running with no one at the other end. The sound continued long after Kirill would have expected it to be turned off. Slowly, yellow began to stain his frills. Had he been left in here? The door was locked. He didn't know how to break glass steel. He didn't even know if he could break glass steel. A long, low, heavy hiss sounded. Kirill jumped slightly. He'd thought he was definitely alone by now. Had they just not moved?
Sir.
That was Cinna's lighter, higher voice.
I told you to go.
Where? I don't have blood bonds.
Gux's speech sounded heavy.
Don't stay here. This isn't something you should see.
If I shouldn't see it, that seems to me like something I should see.
Cinna's voice was quiet, but the way he spoke made Kirill feel like even Gux wouldn't argue against him. After a long pause, Gux clicked in what sounded like surrender.
So be it then. It's fitting, I think. The last vindication of the Tiziks should have a witness.
What do you mean, the last vindication? You don't look good. What are you trying to do?
Did Cinna's voice sound gentler than before?
Don't lie to me, sir. You know you're no good at it.
Damn you.
Gux's steps moved a bit closer.
Look around, Cinna. We have no army. We have no shipyards. We have nothing.
And?
We are prey, Cinna. We are easy to devour and surrounded by enemies. You know it. You've been with me. What happens if the Outworlders find us? Or the Green Ones, or the Long Ones? It only takes one enemy ship to discover that we have no army. They will swallow us whole.
Gux's voice sounded exhausted, heavy. Two slow sets of Tizik's footsteps moved gradually toward the hallway.
I could not tell them. But the Tiziks, we will soon disappear. Our species is to die. We will be chewed, crushed, swallowed. What famine herself could not do. Cinna, tell me honestly, is this my doing?
The pause was long and waited before Cinna replied.
Sir, I think it would be almost impossible for you to stop it. I think once we laid the trap, it was too late.
That's not a no.
Kirill could hear the footsteps approaching down the hall.
No, sir, but if it hadn't been you, I think it would have been someone else.
Gux made a low, rattling sound that Kirill thought might be a Tizik's sigh.
I wish I knew. Well, it no longer matters. I will know soon when the hungry judges me.
Don't say that.
The two Tiziks reached the glass steel door and stopped.
You don't know how long you have.
Not long, I think.
Gux opened the door. Kirill's frills flared bright red and yellow with fear and nervousness as he took a step back. He wasn't exactly sure why, but something felt wrong.
Sir, why are we here?
Gux made the rattling click sound again.
I told you, the last vindication of the Tiziks is at hand.
The light on Gux's glossy appendages bounced slightly. He was shaking. Gux was shaking.
We will all die, but not quietly. Not without striking even one blow in return.
Sir.
Tsuna gripped his superior's forelimb tightly. Kirill could see him quiver with the strain.
Are you out of your mind? They'll destroy everything we have left.
Kirill's frills slowly began to darken, black staining the edges and seeping inward.
Is that what he means about vindication?
He could feel the grip on his throat, the shaking, the burning feeling in his lungs. He didn't want to die.
It's already gone, Tsuna.
Kirill would have expected Gux's voice to be agitated, angry even, but it wasn't. It was just quiet. Quiet and sad.
Everything is already doomed. City by city, planet by planet, until the last of us are hunted down. You know better than anyone that we are surrounded. You've seen what they do if they have a chance. And now it's nothing but chances. And isn't it kinder for everything to be over in a flash?
Kirill's heart beat faster. He could feel his neck going black. Gux was discussing his death, everyone's death, so calmly. The one thing that Kumans had said not to do, and Gux not only planned to do it, he almost seemed to consider it already done. With a sinking feeling, Kirill became aware again of the metal spheres surrounding his feet. He couldn't defend himself. Could he even outrun Gux with the restraints clinging to the floor? And if he did, there was still Tsuna standing in the doorway.
Do I just have to stay here and die?
He didn't want to die at all, but especially not like this, trapped here like a small animal. He didn't want to die, and he didn't want to do it running around a little room, clawing at the walls. He wasn't brave, he wasn't strong. He couldn't stare death in the face and not move. He'd run, he'd scream, he'd die acting like some kind of little pest cornered by a predator. Somehow dying with the Kumans in their war seemed like a precious daydream in comparison.
And you're determined to do this?
Tsuna muttered quietly.
It's all I can give to the Tiziks now.
There was a long, quiet moment. Kirill couldn't seem to look away from Tsuna's appendage, gripping that forearm. The last restraint. Any moment now, he would let go. Finally, Tsuna let out that rattling click that the translator interpreted as a sigh.
Then, I'm sorry, sir.
A splash of green filled Kirill's view, and Gux's black bulk slumped to the floor. Tsuna let go of his former superior's forearm. He looked sad.
I'm sorry, sir. I know the situation, but I'm not giving up hope just yet.
Tsuna entered the room, moving out Gux's twitching body.
Not yet.
Kirill shrank back, looking at Tsuna's green splattered face.
Please, not like this.
Abruptly, Tsuna stopped short and bent all his appendages, resting their joints on the ground. Was he kneeling? Abasement. Kirill's frills went from black to teal in an instant.
What's happening? Please.
Tsuna's voice was strange, choked even. Kirill's translator informed him that he was crying.
Stop them. Save what's left of us. The citizens. The children. Please, help us.
My goodness. Thanks for listening.